Senator from the 25th.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Let me begin by offering $5 to the Senator Cullen, wanting to know what page that will get me on. Mr. President and members, to Senator Erpenbach, indeed, I will be back up north talking to the trees. That is one heck of a lot better than beating my head against a wall here in Madison. And Mr. President, Senator from the 13th was very gracious in his remarks. I considered them to be sincere. He has said them publicly before. Senator from the 19th has said very nice remarks. As a matter of fact, my wife and I have been overwhelmed with the kind words, the compliments, the embraces that we've received since I announced my decision. Mr. President, I like it so much, I've decided to rescind my announcement and stay around 4 more years and do it again. But unlike Senator Cullen, I'm not going to be back for 4 more years. But I'm glad he was. Although I have cut my remarks close to 272, not, because I cut all my reference to Senator Cullen. I did not. I will kindly refer to our good friend, and I'm grateful he's back. Mr. President, members, I am really honored to be given the opportunity to offer a reflection on this incredible opportunity that you and I have to be one of 1,022 senators since statehood to serve in this historic institution and be able to contribute to the well-being of the good citizens of the great state we are proud to call home. I think you will hear a common theme from the 4 of us, and we have not compared notes. There will be different ways to say some of the same things. But the common bond that I know that Senator Cullen, Senator Schultz, and I, Senator Lehman, have is that we love this institution. We believe that this is the people's place. We fervently believe that we have a responsibility to think beyond our own ideology, our own sense of what's important, and truly do everything possible to do what we can to represent not just the people we represent in our districts, but all of the people in the state of Wisconsin. I live in an area, and I'm going to speak from the context of the people of northern Wisconsin in my remarks. But, Mr. President, I live in an area where people feel isolated. They live a long way from northern Wisconsin, or from Madison. Northern Wisconsin's a long way from Madison. Some people in northern Wisconsin live a long way from northern Wisconsin. But, Mr. President, there's an advantage to me because every week I have to travel through most of the state to get here. And I begin to understand how we are connected as a people. And I know Senator Harsdorf. We're going to skip names and talk about people. Senator Harsdorf does the same thing. And those of us, Senator Tiffany lives in northeastern Wisconsin. When you travel through the state, you cannot ignore the relationships. There are no barriers, there are no bridges, there are no toll bridges that say you're now entering the Republican county of or the school district of. You begin to see all these school districts and counties and cities and how we come together as a people, and that's the way we ought to function, Mr. President, as a Senate. My motivation for public service goes back 59 years ago when I learned that my best friend could not get a haircut at my barber, Pinky, in Wheaton, Illinois. It was because he wasn't white. And I learned that evening my good friend, who I was colorblind to, was hurt, and so was I. I felt that dagger of discrimination and the pain of prejudice, and I couldn't spell either word. And I went home, Mr. President, and I told myself I'm going to fight the rest of my life so that people will treat each other equally. Mr. President, I never knew that I would be given this great opportunity to be in this body, to be able to fight for justice and fairness for citizens. And if you understand that story, you might better understand my passion, because it's 59 years of trying to assure that we right the wrongs against people who don't deserve it. Mr. President, little did I know that I would be granted this great opportunity to serve the wonderful people of northern Wisconsin who've allowed me to advocate on their behalf. I love that district. I think you know it. It is the most beautiful part of the state, and you should all be proud of your areas, but it is truly God's country. But, Mr. President, exceeding the vast beauty is the depth of the character of the citizens who live there. They have taught me so much, the way they live their lives. They treat their neighbors as family. They're stewards of a natural resource that nurtures their souls and sustains their quality of life. The legislature can learn a very important lesson from the way these citizens look beyond their separate interests to their shared ideals of opportunity and prosperity for all. They believe their public schools are the centerpiece of community pride. They recognize a neighbor in need and willingly dig deep into their pockets to help. They maintain a moral bond with community and they strive for the common good. Mr. President, things are different here in Madison, and these citizens wonder why. Regardless of political affiliation, citizens are deeply troubled by a political landscape where legislative decisions are disconnected from public priorities. They are increasingly frustrated about the lack of openness and unwillingness to compromise because that is the way they live their lives. They don't see the differences. They work through the problems to get to the solutions, and they expect us to do the same, Mr. President. They are weary of this us versus them rhetoric, in which there is so much blame rather than cooperation that can lead to consensus. I'm convinced, Mr. President, that the measure of our worth is not determined by conquest and conflict, but by our efforts to collectively achieve the common good. Our state is not served, Mr. President, if the citizens of Waukesha win and the citizens of Washburn lose. And Mr. President, if you ask, a strong majority of citizens will encourage legislators to do a better job of reflecting the will of the people instead of ignoring it. They will remind you that officials who isolate or deliberately divide citizens who disagree are chartering a very dangerous pathway to cynicism and demise of this democratic society. The citizens of northern Wisconsin will remind you that Wisconsin's north coast is not Highway 29, and that our obligation as elected officials is to empower people, not avoid them because they have a different view than the party in control. And that is a message to any legislator, regardless of party, who just didn't want to travel to a different part of the state because it was too far. They are citizens who deserve the right to be part of this government. It is theirs, not ours. Mr. President, citizens have a rightful reason to wonder why it's easier to fly to Washington to raise funds for campaigns, yet it's impossible to bring a committee to northern Wisconsin on what was the most important bill facing their lives. We can do better, Mr. President, is the point I'm making. There is no harm to taking the time to listen to what people have to say. As a matter of fact, there is more good in taking the time to listen to them than ignoring them. We need to do more to empower people by using our ears rather than our mouths to dictate to them. Mr. President, we are far more than partisans elected to do the bidding of those who voted for us. In the governor's conference room, it is the will of the people, is the law of the land. It doesn't say those who contribute to our campaigns. It doesn't say just those who are elected. It doesn't say just those who are in our districts. It says the will of the people. In other words, we are elected to be given that tremendous opportunity to use judgment and knowledge and listen to the concerns of the people of Wisconsin to find out what's good for all, not just a few whom we happen to agree with. Mr. President, we are caretakers of a public trust in this democratic process that we should strive to strengthen and not weaken it. The public, as we know, when they come through this building, are inspired by the beauty, and they will remind us that we serve in the people's place. This isn't our government. It doesn't belong to the special interests and lobbyists who hold way too much sway, regardless of which party is in control. They won't question whether or not the majority party, regardless of that party, doesn't want Wisconsin to succeed. But they will rightfully question why public officials won't include their good ideas so that all of Wisconsin can participate and succeed. They will absolutely question the decision to design partisan districts to suppress the vote solely because it is in one political party's interest to do so. And my goodness, they certainly will question why something cannot be done to stem the tsunami of campaign spending that will leave our democratic landscape looking worse than the terrible debris field in the state of Washington. Mr. President, I'm deeply concerned, as we all should be, that the foundation of our democracy is at stake. Do we want a legacy to be the way in which we honor the best of our democratic society? Or will we be known as the generation that substitutes we the people with the privileged, we the people substitute with we the privileged who now have the absolute political power? Mr. President, our history is not written in partisanship. It's written in partnership. I'm a product of that tradition, and so are many of you. It is the tradition of Governor Knowles and Nelson, and Lucy and Thompson, working well with others to leave lasting legacies. The legislature named the stewardship program the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program. Mr. President, who will history name the recently enacted voting suppression bills after? This institution has such a proud past, where members put their partisan goals aside to work together. My proudest vote came in 1983, when our good friend Senator Cullen Engelleiter, along with Representative Thompson and Speaker Loftus, offered a painful antidote of tax increases and benefit reductions to eliminate the unemployment compensation deficit and get the UC fund in a sustainable condition. Mr. President, if those leaders had been beholden to their base instead of advocates for a permanent action, we would have never had that compromise. Sadly, that can't happen today when members are pressured to put partisan loyalty ahead of public interest. Arriving at compromise is never easy, but today it appears nearly impossible. Instead of drawing lines in the sand, Mr. President, we need to restore the gift of reason. In order to renew the possibility of bipartisanship, members must be willing to sit down, differ with their own party, and reach compromise with members of the other party. I can't thank Senator Schultz enough for the dignified manner in which he has shown great political courage to overcome partisan barriers to try to make the process work as the citizens wish. I remember that when he was a new majority leader, one of the first challenges he faced was a serious deficit in the Senate budget. He didn't punish the minority staff, but assured that there would be shared sacrifice. At a later time, the Assembly leader eliminated only the positions for Assembly Democrats. His leadership on complicated and emotional issues like collective bargaining, redistricting, and mining has reflected the Wisconsin way. Across Wisconsin, citizens are thanking him for giving bipartisanship a meaningful name. Even though he has been criticized by some who want him to toe the rigid partisan line, he stayed true to his principles and to core values of the people he represents. During this terrible time of division and turmoil, thank you, Senator Schultz, for your leadership and shining a bright light on good government. Mr. President, throughout my career, as you know, I have passionately defended my district and spoken as a Democrat. But I've also expressed independence and willingness to publicly fight my own leadership and work across the aisle to get things done. As a member of the majority party, I witnessed examples of the abuse of power by a Democratic majority leader, but I took the floor to publicly criticize him. Likewise, in 1997, as a member of the majority party, I worked for 5 days with Senator Winnicke, Senator Rood, then Minority Leader Senator Ellis, to negotiate a compromise that brought an end to that 3.5-month budget impasse. Years ago, Mr. President, because we can do better, we know we can do better. Years ago, during budget deliberations, the Finance Committee had adopted over 10 amendments from then minority member Walter John Schulson, who then voted against the budget. We in the majority party didn't condemn him. We respected his obligation to serve his district and respected and honored his loyalty to his political beliefs. Let us get back to that day, Mr. President, where there aren't limits on the minority party, but there are opportunities because they have voices and opinions and positions of people in Wisconsin whose voice deserves to be included in the final product. We must recover our ability to renew the sense of openness and practice tolerance and cooperation that has made us proud in the past. I am extremely honored to deliver these remarks on the same day as Senator Schultz, Senator Cullen, Senator Lehman. They exemplify the highest standards of public service, respect the integrity and virtues of this institution, and understand that the art of good legislating involves balance, fairness, and shared responsibility. Mr. President, politics ought to be the practice of solving problems, and these lawmakers have dedicated their careers to finding fair and balanced solutions that reflect fair treatment and consensus. Mr. President, there is not one of us who does not stand on the shoulders of others for all of the opportunities that we enjoy today. The men and women who have proudly served our state, the healthcare workers who have nurtured us and our families to better health, the brave public safety officers and firefighters who risk their lives to protect our property and safety, the teachers who have brought out the best of our children, the volunteers whose generosity exceeds the wealth of our richest citizens are just a few. The values and qualities of those who have enriched our lives, Mr. President, are the same qualities that define our daily responsibility as public officials. As I reflect upon the best moments of the past 32 years, it is those times when we work together, because our contribution made a difference in making northern Wisconsin a better place. Words are insufficient to express my deep appreciation to my wife, my son, my daughter, whose patience and support enabled me to put the public first. They made a willingness to play second place to public service, and it is the reason that I, just like each of you, are able to do what you're doing. Mr. President, I will be, in fact, calling around to your offices as one of the adjournment honors. I want to adjourn in honor of each of your spouses as a reminder of the appreciation of what our spouses do to enable us to serve the public. I'm grateful to my staff, Jeff Brandt, Steve Kulig, Lisa Lundquist, and all the staff who've endured my wrath, but have also experienced the fruits of fulfillment in solving problems and improving the lives of those we serve. And last but not least, all of us are indebted to the research staff and the support from the dedicated staff at the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, Audit Bureau, Legislative Council, Reference Bureau, LTSB, Sergeant's Office, clerks, Sergeant staff. They are some of the finest in the nation that make our jobs easier. Mr. President, legislative effectiveness and integrity are synonymous with Bonnie Reese, Bob Lang, and Dale Catnaugh. Their loyalty to this institution defines the highest standards of public service. Learn from them, gain from them, benefit from them, use their advice, and we will be a better place. Despite the bitter political struggles of the past 4 years, I still love and believe in this institution. As much as some of us have disagreed on the issues and ideology, I value the dedication of each and every one of you who've chosen to serve in public office. So much opportunity has been granted, yes, and we bear a great responsibility to return the favor to all of Wisconsin. As I leave this great institution, I encourage you to restore the Senate to the mainstream, to its roots, as a place where moderation is the mainstream and the diversity of ideas from Wisconsin are challenged into the solutions that serve us all. Thank you, Mr. President.